Hello and welcome to a special sports presentation of WKMCTV, the broadcast arm of Mount Carmel Area High School. I am Warren Altamar. Along with me today is Jose Gonzalo, the head statistician at Mount Carmel Area for too long to remember almost.
37 years.
37 years, and a very, very special guest today, Joseph Jazz Diminick, of course, the legendary coach at Mount Carmel Area. Today we're going to spend some time with Coach, and rather than be a straight-on interview where there'll be a lot of questions and things, we're basically going to let Coach reminisce about his legendary career. Be nice and easy. We'll roll from the very beginning. We'll start when he was young, and we'll let him tell us how that was.
That's going back to the Stone Age.
And going back, and then we'll move all the way up to his career at Mount Carmel Area and actually to the current moment now. So what we'll start off with here is basically tell us what it was like. You grew up in Coltmount. What was that like in those days when you grew up and you were playing football at an early age, I'm sure?
Well, you know, it's just typically like any other kids in the region. We had nothing to do with except play sports, and of course it was football and basketball that we did, and we spent all our time doing that. Now me, I would say to go way back. I just love to run. I never did anything just walking. In fact, to this day, they say, you're still hustling. I remember talking to one of my neighbors down there several months ago, and she said, well, we talked, and she said, you're still running like you did 50 or 60 years ago. He said, never stop taking it.
That's right. Jazz, when you first started playing football, there wasn't midget football or junior football.
No.
It was in high school, correct?
Yeah, all it was, and we say it the best experience you can get was street football.
Right.
Okay, where you sidestep the cars and what have you. But that's what we did. No such thing as organized football then.
So you started when you were a sophomore or a freshman?
Well, I was a sophomore when I didn't go out my first year because I was only 98 pounds. So I waited till I bulked up. And,
To what, 110?
101.
101.
Yeah, and that's when I decided to go out for football.
And who was the coach at that time?
That time was Mike Terry. He was the head coach, and Al Rusgus Ross was the assistant coach.
Right.
Yeah. And there weren't any other coaches. Just the two.
Just two guys.
Yep. Yep.
With a, what, 40, 50-man roster? Happy?
No, they didn't have that high. I'd say between 35 and 40. Wow. But I remember we went out to show when I started. They had a call for candidates for the JV team, so I went out, and there were about 75 players there, okay? So I'm looking for the best chance. I'm trying to gain an advantage. And they said, okay, who wants to be quarterback? And maybe 8 or 10 guys stepped out. Who wants to be left halfback? Same thing happened. I'm looking at these numbers. I can't compete with them. Right halfback. They kept going, all linemen, and they finally said, tackles. Who wants to be a tackle? There were 2 of us left. 2 of us out there, and they looked, so they gave some little workout. The next day they said, you're no tackle, you're a back. And they put me in the backfield, and that's where it was. Yeah.
When you get back to your last year there was your junior year, correct? Or
Well, actually, when my junior year was the last year I played there. But then I had to go to prep school to get some courses. And Frank Leahy at Notre Dame, he called me up and he said, you should pick any prep school in the country and they would pay for it. Okay? But I thought, me, Notre Dame? No way could I make a place like that. So I just backed off that, and then I finally went to a Seton Hall prep in New Jersey. Yeah.
Well, that was following a fantastic year at Coltmont. Your year was 1944.
44.
You were 11-0. That team scored 355 points to 21 for the opposition,
Yeah.
8 shutouts,
Yeah.
and you didn't win a championship. And I think the story of why you didn't is interesting. Maybe you would want to share that with the folks.
Well, it was the sailor system where it was all concerned with the teams you played and how they won and lost. And unfortunately, we lost out by, I don't know, 10 or 12 points, something like that, I don't recall. And same thing happened to Blakely, okay? So the same thing happened, they lost out, we lost out. So the 2 best teams, they thought, we're not playing the championship game. So Coltmont, Bill Beierschmidt, and Mike Terry, of course, they arranged to play Blakely. So we're going to play Blakely here in the Mount Carmel Stadium on Friday night, first Friday night after the season was over. And we played that fantastic. And what happens there is all of a sudden Friday morning, we got such rain and sleet and snow, unbelievable. So wind up, they had to postpone a game or cancel it, and they canceled the game. We never got.
So you never got to play them?
Never got to play. But that could have been a great game.
Oh, I could imagine. Jazz, on that team, another interesting thing I discovered were you guys had 19 touchdown passes that year. 6 different people threw touchdown passes. Now, when Mike Terry was here, I don't remember him being that wide open. What made that team different, and why do you think that he ran that explosive type of offense, or was it the kind of guys you were playing with?
Well, I'd probably say the type of guys that we had. See, Mike Terry in 1944, through George Rona, he got the T formation, and we were the first team in the region to have it. So we brought that in, and it was a kind of a complicated system, but everybody was involved. Like you'd call a play 42-35. So that meant the 4th back was going in motion on 2, and the 3rd back was carrying the ball through the 5 hole. You know, but it was simple. I mean, once you learn it, you know. But from his former experience, he'd have a lot right-hander going to the right and throwing pass, and left-hander going to the left, or even right-hander, and he'd have to just toss the ball back to the tailback, so to speak. And so that's why we had different guys throwing the ball.
So he really utilized his people.
Yeah, I think he did.
I don't want to digress a little bit, Jazz, but you and I have discussed this before, and maybe the folks would be interested in how Coltmont became to be the Wildcats and wore the blue and white. And your references to Coach Terry, I think, are apropos to this whole subject.
Yeah. Well, when did they start football in Coltmont?
32.
32,
Yeah.
okay. And Danny Kwasnowski was a Coltmont guy, and he was picked as the first coach. And so they didn't know what colors to have, so he called it, what do they have down at Susquehanna, maroon and...
Yeah,
maroon
like the
and
Crusaders, I think the maroon and
Crusaders,
orange, or maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
orange and...
yeah.
So anyway, so he took those colors, and then, of course, he also, the nickname, and that's what we were for about, I guess, 3 years, until Mike Terry came out of, he graduated, what, in
28 from Mount Carmel, probably 32 or 33
32.
from
So when
Villanova.
he came to Coltmont, I guess they didn't like the name, so they got rid of the Crusaders, made them the Wildcats because of Villanova.
Villanova Wildcats.
Okay, Villanova Wildcats.
Okay.
And their colors were blue and white, navy blue. And that's what our official colors are, navy blue. And you've seen everything, any kind of blue possible, except that navy blue. And the reason for that is they had no money. You know? So Bill Beierschmidt, he'd go and he'd call up a company and say, I need jerseys. What color? Blue.
Whatever blue there was.
So whatever blue, that's what we have. So, and the royal blue, a lot of people think that royal blue is the Coltmont color. The Coltmont color is navy blue. Yeah.
Well, you know, you look at Coltmont, and it wasn't a long-lived program compared to other programs, but certainly there was a real tradition in that program. When you look back at your time at Coltmont, I mean, what's really special? What stands out to you in your career at Coltmont?
One thing I would say, we had such pride and such tradition in going to Coltmont that, you know, up until 1952, I don't know if you know this, if I ever told you, up until 1952, Coltmont was the only team that had the winning edge over Mount Carmel on a regular basis, playing on a regular basis.
Right.
And then Coltmont hit the skids in '52. That's they getting smaller and smaller, and and they fell by the wayside.
When you were growing up in Coltmont, obviously Warren alluded to the fact that the tradition and the winning nature there. Who were your idols growing up? I mean, I know when I grew up, Jigs Ficca was an idol, and I'm sure you had idols. But who was yours?
Well, the only ones we had, I mean, I had no connection with the outside world. We didn't even have a newspaper. I mean, we didn't get it, but my guys were Steve Filipovich and Joe Pazelski. You know, they were the two key guys for Mount Carmel. But then anybody that was pushed after that came along, we admired him. You know,
Admire him.
yeah.
But that 38 team was
yeah.
was the team that put Cutman on the map with the
Right.
big win over Ferndale or whatever, or
Yeah,
state
Ferndale
championship.
50-19. Yeah.
But Pazelski and Filipovich, obviously Farmer going on to professional football, and Hoshi
Professional
went
baseball.
to Villanova, correct?
Yeah, right.
But they had to be great role models for the kids of color.
Oh, they were.
So, what's coming to my mind as we're talking is that you had great friends back then, and one of those guys is still one of your best friends to this day, and that's Gus Beach.
Yeah, Gus was quite the character. He was a good athlete. You know, Gus, an excellent basketball player, and he was the first guy in the region to come out and dribble behind his back. Okay, but I still picture it to this day down by the ice plant in Colton, which used to be the ice plant. I think it's Mudry's or some garage down there now. We used to go right after school. We'd go down there, and when it wasn't football season, and we'd play football. And I remember Gus, he had big feet. Gus had big feet, and the soles would come off, and he's flopping there. He said, "Boy, when I go home," he said, "my mom's going to kill me." And I'm sure she gave him some good shots there.
Oh my goodness!
But one of the things we did, when we didn't have a football, and this was key to a lot of our guys down there, we used a tin can.
For football.
Yeah, for football, and that you learn to catch the ball there. Okay, you know the carnation cans about that size, you know, and so we'd get a can there, push the open edges that were back down inside, so it was nice and smooth, and that's how we learned that we threw the ball, and that gave us good hands, good fingers. Yeah, and we did that, and then playgrounds up at the school, when we had recess time, we're out there playing with that tin can because nobody had footballs. Yeah.
You look at high school football, and of course now you have a TV studio such as this, and you have all the media, you know, the internet and everything else. But back in your time, when you're playing for the Colt Mount Wildcats, a relatively obscure school, you know, not very big, how does a guy like you get noticed the way you did and get recruited then? How did that happen in those days?
Well, they did some recruiting. They didn't do a lot of it, you know. I mean, up in our area, okay? But I guess word get out, you know, through my coaches. I guess Bobby Norco had me. He was originally from Shenandoah. He coached me at Seton Hall, and Mike Terry. They had connections, and one of my big contacts was Kentucky coach.
Adolph Rook? Oh, it's a basketball coach.
Yeah. Anyway, it'll come to me. See, that's what he said. He goes by. But he was heavily recruiting me at that time to go to Kentucky. Yeah. And then we were recruited, three of us, three at the same time. They wanted us down to Tennessee. So I come close to going to Tennessee, and they wanted me down there to play tailback for them. And I said, I can't throw it. Don't worry about it. Just get the ball there. They didn't care what I was doing, how I was doing it. Just get the ball there. So we come close to going there. And I think if Barkowski, we'll call him Barky, if Barky would have gone there, I think the three of us would have wound up going to the University of Tennessee.
Is this Bernie Barkowski?
Bernie.
Did he go to Pitt, right?
Right.
But how did you end up still, was Warren alluded to, Boston College? How did that work out?
Well, I have to tell you a story there. I was highly recruited at Tennessee, and Murray Warmoth, who became a great coach of Minnesota, head coach, he come up to try and convince me to go to Kentucky, and I don't want to go to summer school. That was the whole thing, you know. If I wouldn't have to go to summer school, it'd be okay. So I said, Coach, I can't go. He said, why? He said, I have to work. He said, what do you mean work? He said, well, I have to paint my house. He said, get me a pair of coveralls. He said, I'll help you. I got to come up with another excuse. Well, I said, I got to work and raise money to buy clothes for college. You come down. We have our own interior designer, and they'll give you all the clothes you need. You won't have to buy any kind of clothes. Well, I said, well, I said, I have problems with my teeth. I got to get that. He says, you come down. He said, we have the dentist. All your teeth cares will be taken care of. You don't have to worry about a thing, you know? And I didn't get him to cover all, so I should have, I guess. Yeah, but that.
But then,
But anyway, to answer your question there, so now here I am. I didn't want to go to summer school. Well, wouldn't you know it, I have to go to summer school anyway because I had to go to have an extra math class to get into BC. So I went up there in the summertime, and that's where I wound up going. Went to summer school, and then, of course, football rolled around, and we were there.
you stayed there.
Yeah.
Before we leave Contlant, you met Anne Louise while
Yeah.
you were still playing high
Yeah.
school sports. And I know I've heard this story, but I think the fans would be interested in hearing how you met the love of your life and the woman who's been there for 60-odd years, right?
Right.
Something like that. How'd that happen?
Well, she knew nothing about football. She didn't know what a football was.
First of all, she was from Cole Township, right?
No.
Or
she was
Shamokin?
St. Ed's. No, don't say Cold
Oh,
Town,
I'm sorry.
especially Shamokin. Especially Shamokin.
Okay.
St. Ed's. And she said she didn't know what a football was. You say pigskin, she wouldn't know what you're talking about. She was strictly, all they had there was basketball, and she was a cheerleader. And I had seen her a couple different times, but I never saw when I was playing, okay? And a classmate of her, they saw him, and they said, who's that good-looking blonde over there? So he told me. Well, lo and behold, it was, I guess, later on that year sometime, I'm introduced to her at the MOC, the last dance. And I had the last dance with her, and of course that wound up with the last girl I had.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Well, that turned out fairly well now, didn't
Well, I
it?
think so.
As we look back.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
let me tell you something. She was one of my good assistant coaches, okay? Because when all my boys would leave, 6 guys when they're leaving for the game, she gave them the last bit of advice. You might have heard this. She'd always say to them, just get the quarterback. And that was, I'll tell you one more little thing about her. In the very beginning, she used to scream up there. She said, they're offside, the other team. They're offside because the center was leaning out over the ball. She didn't know that the center could be over the
Yeah,
ball
it
like
could
that.
be over the ball.
But she screamed at finding someone to straighten her out on that.
But for someone who didn't know anything about
Oh,
football,
yeah.
she certainly learned a lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Fan and critic?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Level you out sometimes from being too high or too low?
Well, if it was regarding our boys or anything like that, never in front of them, never talk about them. And she might say, you know, criticize me or question me why I did this, why I did that. But she was okay. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, you know, a lot of guys who are married and coaching and know all the problems with that, the time away. You had a very unique moment though with 6 boys, and all 6 of them playing football at, you know, at different times, some at the same time as you were going through. It had to be really difficult for her to try to get a schedule together to understand who was going to be where, when, and you know, that kind of thing.
Well, that's the amazing part about her and the 6 boys. But one fortunate thing, for 18 years or something like that, they went to school with me and come home with me, each one of them, you know, just simply because I was their coach. And so she always had dinner, of course, prepared when we'd come in, and then the kids might go and watch TV for 20 minutes or half hour, and then they want a snack. It's now 7 o'clock, and then go up to their rooms and do what she made them do. In fact, right when they were young in elementary school, as soon as they come home from school, they'd hit the door and say, "Mother," you know, and she'd go to the door and greet them and take them out and give them a snack, and then put it out in the laundry room, separate one there, one at the table, and then they worked on their studies. So they were all honor students, and I attributed all that to her.
Well, you've always given her tons of credit
Yeah.
for their success in life, Jazz, and you made a good choice at that dance that night.
I would definitely say that. We're going to start now with the Boston College days. As Coach went to Boston College on a scholarship, I take it.
Right.
And
Oh, it couldn't have gone any other way.
So what was the Boston College experience like for a guy from Coltmount?
Well, that was fantastic for me, of course, because anything I did, you know, everything was new, you know, new experience for me. So I was just taken up by all of it. Yeah.
Is Boston College, was it the fact that it was a Catholic school making it easier for you to go to a school like that, or didn't it matter to you one way
No,
or
it,
the other?
it didn't matter to me that one,
No.
not one way or another. But I'm happy I went there, and we had a great career there and great education, so it worked out fine.
And what did you play at Boston College? What was your position there?
Well, back in the Stone Ages, we had to play both offense and defense.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Okay.
So when I went there, I was playing defensive back at 151 pounds, defensive back and running back. So that's how we did it there. And you were allowed to come out of the game, was it once maybe? And they kept a scorecard. The referees used to keep a scorecard when you went in a game, who went out and who come in, you know, and to keep it legit. And but many games I played, 59 minutes? Yeah.
Jazz, one of the things, and if you look at the Boston College website, they have you as a 4-year letterman.
Yeah.
Were freshmen allowed to play?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
when did they change that? They changed that later? Because I know when Gary went to Notre Dame,
It was,
you couldn't play.
Yeah. I don't recall, Jose. You know, if I had time to give it some thought, maybe I could come
But
close
it was after your time
Oh,
there.
yeah, much after that, yeah.
But you played and started, what, 3 years in the
3
backfield?
years, yeah,
3
yeah.
years. You
And-
played with some great folks there, and one of
Oh.
your best friends, I think, forever is Art Donovan.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Art Donovan played with in Super Bowl with
Right.
the Baltimore Colts, and I
Mm-hmm.
know we've had a number of stories and discussions about him. But was he a friend from day one?
Well, when I went to BC, he's the first guy I met. First guy I met, my first roommate. Okay, and of course from there naturally it stayed that way. And but I've been in contact with him over the years. You know, Artie's just a great guy, and we always said what you see in Artie Donovan on TV, that's what you get.
That's him.
There's no BS about him. He's not a phony about anything. He's just a great athlete.
Now, and another thing, when you look at the website, you still hold the record for the longest kickoff return at Boston College. And we're looking at 64 years ago, and it's 100 yards, and I think it was against St. Bonaventure,
Yes. Yeah.
something like that. But you return kicks, you return punts also,
Yeah.
in
yeah.
addition to running the ball out of the backfield and
Oh,
playing
yeah,
defense.
Yeah, we did it all. Throwing the ball even.
Throwing the
Even
ball
throwing
at
the ball.
BC too.
A little bit of everything, yeah, yeah.
There were some great people that played in the country at that time.
Oh, you bet there were. I played against, and here's where I know I could have set a record, but I was just happy to knock the ball down. We're playing against Y.A. Tittle from LSU, you know?
Yeah.
And it was 4th down, and he throws the ball over in the right flat. My right, I was playing defensive halfback, and he throws over there, and it was 4th down, and I was just so happy to bat it down. I could have picked that off. It could have gone over 100 yards for a touchdown, but I was just content to knock the ball
Just
down.
happy to get it.
Yeah.
Would you have yelled at you then, if you were the coach?
You better believe it. Yeah, yeah.
But there were other folks there that
Oh.
Butch Songen, Ernie Stautner,
Yeah.
Ed Casey, Tom Brennan, who I think was on another All-America team too
Yeah.
at your time. So there's some great. You won 23, 24 games during your period. I know it's a lot of games.
I guess about that. But there's some great football players that I played with. Ernie Stautner was All-Pro. Artie
Right.
Donovan was All-Pro.
All-Pro.
Art Spinney didn't become All-Pro, but he was an end for us, and they made him a guard.
You made a guard
Yeah, in
in
the
the
pros, and he stayed with the Colts for quite a few years. And the best one, not the best one, but one of the better ones was a guy by the name of John Kissel, okay? And he was the guy that loved to go out and have fun. He played with the Cleveland Browns, and he was All-Pro then with the Cleveland Browns. That's before they merged,
Right.
okay? And what he used to love to do is Friday night, he'd go out carousing in the whole town and get boozed up like you wouldn't believe it. We'd come to practice Saturday morning, big scrimmage, and the coaches knew it, and put us through the paces. He's the only guy that never got out of the scrimmage. They made him stay in that scrimmage for 4 or 5 hours.
That was their way to handle
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
If you look at Boston College and the career there, and I'm guessing that nowadays you scout somebody and you have a reason. Either he, has good moves or good hands or whatever. I'm guessing you were the fastest guy on the team.
Well, I don't know if I was the fastest. If I wasn't the fastest, it was a tie for first.
Yeah.
We had three guys. Art Cesario from Brooklyn, he had great speed. Al Canava had great speed. He went to Notre Dame. He started at Notre Dame as not starting lineup. He began his career at Notre Dame, but he quit after a couple of months, as Artie Donovan did. Artie Donovan started.
He started at Notre Dame?
Yeah, went to Notre Dame, but they gave up on it. They come home. They quit on it. So, but we could have had a great relay team there, okay? But I guess with the quickness and the speed, I was probably on top of all those guys to that, Yeah.
But I don't want to digress here, but you talked about coming up on a train. I think we discussed how you got back and forth to Boston College in those days, and how often were you able to come home?
Yeah. Well, what I used to do is, and they didn't have the interstate highways that they have today. We used to hitchhike into New York City, get a bus from New York City to Boston, and then coming home, we'd hitchhike into New York. And I had some great friends there in New York. A guy named Baranowski from Atlas, Al Baranowski, and Maxie McStudis was our trainer at Seton Hall. And then, of course, he went to CCNY and became head trainer there for them. And he was involved in that scandal when they had the BC scandal. But then, so I'd hitchhike into New York, stay with them overnight, and then hitchhike home get a ride down, take the subway down to Canal Street, then the Holland Tunnel, and hitchhik home.
I mean, it's a 6-hour drive now. How long
Yeah.
did that take you back then?
Oh, 10, 12 hours. Yeah.
Did your dad ever get to see you play college football?
Yeah, he come up a few times.
But it was difficult, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, like I say, back then it was a 10-hour trip driving, and you couldn't get many guys that want to come up like that. But he did a few times, yeah, we got him up there.
I bet that was special to you, too.
Oh, sure. Anytime your parents are around, you're proud of that and happy for it.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back to New York again. Who was the coach at New York at that time? With the
Steve
Giants?
Owens.
Steve Owens.
Yeah. And when I stepped on the field, the first thing he said to me, he said, Steve Filipovich, from his town.
He knew.
Yeah, he knew right away. And of course, that's where we started, yeah.
Now, from all the stories that I've heard and know, that you were going to make that team except for an injury. What happened?
Well, we were scrimmaging. I was supposed to start against Green Bay, and I took a pitch out and on a sweep to the right, and next thing I wound up in a hospital. I landed and dislocated my elbow and still crooked today, But that hurt my chances of playing there,
Did you feel comfortable or confident enough that you could have played?
Oh, I felt that way. What kid doesn't, you feel that, except at Notre Dame I didn't.
At Notre Dame?
I didn't feel I could make Notre Dame, that's why.
Oh, that's why you chose to go to Tennessee or Kentucky
Yeah,
or
right.
Boston College.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Now, when I played when I was with the Giants, our backfield coach was Ali Sherman, okay? And he came to be a winning coach in the NFL, but he was murder. Here I am, 100. Now I'm bulked up. I'm 156. I went with the Giants, and Eddie Price, a great running fullback from Tulane, and a bunch of other guys from Texas. Jimmy Ostendorp from Bucknell. He was about 165, 170. They put us in line with running the gauntlet, and they'd have 250-pound fullbacks running at us, and we had to tackle him. Well, he was cussed so much by the and of course by me silently, to myself. I mean, it was unbelievable what he did to us, and we're not going to play defense. What was he doing that for? We couldn't understand it, but he was a hated guy. Yeah,
He was. Obviously being at Calmont with Terry and then at Boston College and then being around the Giants camp, did you take a lot of those philosophies with you when you became a coach, or did you pick them more up from Walt Marshall or other guys that you coached with later?
Well, one from Mike Terry, when I was at Calmont, he taught me to tough it out. Don't ever make excuses. Don't ever make excuses. Give it your best. Don't complain to your blockers or what have you, which other guys have done, you know, and which I never did that, okay?
No.
And go back to Walt Marshall, I learned a lot of football from Walt Marshall. I mean, he was a Notre Dame graduate. He coached at Auburn and West Philadelphia, and I guess before he went to Auburn, went to Cole Township, coached there 2 years, and then left. But he made a great reputation and a winning team. Cole Township was nothing until Walt came. They were just another team. And then after the stint with Auburn and what have you, he came back to Cole Township, and I don't know how long he was there. But, you know, I was thinking about coming over here today. They talk about football coaches running the universities and what have you.
Yeah.
Walt Marshall ran Cole Township.
He did.
Yes, he did. I mean, we had an athletic director, Andy Long was the AD, but Walt called the shots. I mean, he picked me as a football coach. As an assistant, he scouted me out. They needed a backfield coach, so they went and checked my background and all that, and of course he picked me. And then I was the assistant basketball coach, and he was head basketball coach. In 2 years, he picked me, okay, as head basketball coach. And then he wanted to start track. My second year there, I guess, they had track. He picks me as track coach. It was bing, bang, boom.
And this is the head football
This is
coach
the head
that's
football
making these
coach.
decisions.
Yeah, right.
It's a little different today.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Coach, you're in New York now.
Yeah.
You leave as a Giant. You've been to Boston. You've made a ton of connections, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What brings you back to the coal region?
Well, what happened there was, I was when I left the Giants, I went to Jersey City, played the Jersey City Giants for rehab and what have you. And I played there, and Anna Louise and I decided to get married in October, okay? And I had just signed, I guess, in the year before that, whatever, I registered for the draft up in Boston, okay? And so now we got married in October, and I'm still playing ball, and then I decided, well, I got to let Boston know what's going on. So I didn't call them, I sent them a letter, and I said, I just got married, just for the record, so you know what I have. And they wrote me a letter back saying, we have so many guys up here, we're not interested in married men. So here I am, I'm waiting to go to the Army back home, you know, and so then I took the Coltmont job as waiting to go, because, you know, just waiting to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And they wound up, I stayed there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So, but you've been married since 51, 52?
1950,
50.
yeah, yeah.
That's a long time.
That'd be
Absolutely.
62
Well,
years.
We were talking before that you're probably involved with football for 70 years, or more than
Oh,
70
yeah.
years.
Oh, yeah.
In one way, shape, or
Right,
form.
right.
Yeah.
As a player and as a coach, I did figure it out one time. It's like 68 or 70 years. A
So
long
there's
time.
nothing you haven't seen or.
Oh, right, yeah.
I can't imagine
You-
anything
No,
anyway.
Yeah.
we were actually going to put this as the end subject about today's football, but
Yeah.
how has the game changed in your eyes from back in the 40s until now?
Well, the biggest change I see, well, no, there's several big ones. I mean, today the kids are bigger, much, much bigger. I don't know where they come from. When I came to Mount Carmel, my first team in '62, I think that was the biggest team I had, and we must have averaged tackle to tackle, I'd say like 235, 225, something like that. I mean, we were big. A lot of the starters were all big, and a lot of backups were big. Today they're bigger. I mean, you know, much, much bigger. And I don't know what is it, what they're eating or working weights and what have you, you know. But the biggest change I see is you could not get us off the field, okay? When we play, you couldn't get us off the field. I mean, they'd have to practically drag us. Today, they only want to play one way. That's the biggest thing, you know. I want to play offense, I want to play defense. Oh, do I have to do it? Yeah, that's my biggest gripe about them.
The specialists.
Yeah, yeah.
Has it changed in any other way? I mean, is it more physical? Is it, or if it probably is because of the size and the strength of players today.
Yeah, it probably is more, I mean, it is more physical. I don't think there's any question about that. But today, the game is so wide open. You know, I mean, now they're playing no backs. The
Yeah.
quarterback, and that's
Empty
it,
set.
you know, and
Right.
that's, I think, the biggest change, and, you know,
How about cerebral-wise, too? I mean, some of these coaches have 100 plays. I mean, you didn't have that many when you coached. I know you didn't. I mean, you believed in doing things, let's do it
the things
correct.
that work, right,
Yeah.
yeah. We'd, for example, in preseason, we'd go into our first scrimmage with maybe 5 plays, maybe 5, maybe 4, you know, because all we did was we just want to go in and find out who the players are and get them going that way. And the second scrimmage, then would have a little bit more in it. Of course, the third week we'd have it all in for the games. But I might have down, I don't know, 25 plays that we might use. We wound up using about 8 of them, you know. Yeah. But today, I mean, they're like that.
Yeah, you wonder.
Yeah,
You do wonder
yeah.
how they're going
I
through
don't know
all
how
those
you
plays.
I don't know how you can keep tab of it. Excuse me, unless there's something that board that looks like a computer, they can make it flip-flop like that, you know. I mean, it's just impossible to read, you know. And you have 30 seconds, I guess that's what it is, 30 seconds from one play to the next, and you've got to read and find the play, what you want to do, and go from there and then get it in the game. Then you wonder why they run out of time.
Why there's delays and
Yeah,
everything else.
delays the game, yeah.
Okay, Coach, you talked a little bit about coming back to the Cole region. You started coaching, assistant coaching at Cole Township. You did some assistant coaching at Susquehanna, which is down by Harrisburg, I believe, correct? And then you ended up on the staff of the legendary coach Mike Terry. Why don't you tell us how you ended up there?
Well, I didn't wind up in his staff, but let me give you a little background on that. I've been coaching, I don't know, 8 years or something, whatever it was. And I had my fill of it. George Chomp was the head coach at Shamokin, and I was helping him there. I'm trying to think of something there else about Cole Township. Anyway, George Chomp was a coach, and he started putting down the coaches about that they were all poor coaches in this region. Well, I jumped them, especially about Mike Terry. You know, I jumped all over him, and I thought, well, this is it. When the season's over, I quit coaching here. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going to quit coaching. And, of course, when, unfortunately, Mike died at the Thanksgiving Day game, I thought, well, I'll put in for the job. If I get it, I'll continue coaching. If I don't get it, that's it. And luckily for me, fortunately for me, it wound up I got it.
Well,
Fortunately for all of us, you wind up getting
Absolutely.
it when you look back at it.
But when you look back, Jazz, it was a close vote, right, between you and John Gursky, who became another legend at Wilson
yeah.
Reading at the time.
Well, I gave John his first coaching job, you know.
You did.
Yeah. John was a Penn graduate, and he was a supervisor on their assembly line in New Jersey. Well, Bernie Romanesky and I went down. We needed a freshman coach, so we went down and recruited John. And here he is, a big job like he had, and we're going to take him to a little job where he can make $4,000 or $5,000 if he made that. In fact, I don't know if he made that
No, I
because
don't
I
think-
didn't make that.
no.
I wasn't making that. And lo and behold, John accepts the job, and he comes up, and he's freshman coach. And John did everything, you know, from equipment manager right up to head coaching. John was assistant coach at Cole, and I'm just trying to think where he went.
Minersville.
He might have been at Minersville, and we both applied for the job here. And I think it was Mr. Bierschmidt, Jerry Bierschmidt. I think he was the key guy there. And of course, Andy Lasansky
And Doc Recco.
and Doc Recker. They were the key guys picking a coach, and I was very blessed that I was picked. You know.
Well, what do you think made them believe in you, that you were the guy at that time?
I have no idea on that, Jose, because you know, I was only head coach. I wasn't only Walt's staff at Cole. I was assistant coach for 4 years. Then I took over as head coach for 2 years.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so you
two
were
at
the head coach
the
then
two at
before, okay.
Susquehanna were head coach too, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, I didn't realize that, all right.
And I went to Levittown, New Jersey, and I was there let me tell you that story. I was there 1 year, and I missed out on the head football job because it was already filled by Dick Luttrell from Selinsgrove, but they made me head basketball coach, okay? So I was first head basketball coach down there. So we're looking for a place to move. I had the 3 boys and Louise, so we're down looking, and I was trying to sell my house in Duncannon, and so we find this beautiful home right there in Bristol Township, and my mother-in-law said, buy it, buy it. I said, not unless my home is sold back in and I'll know over the weekend. And Louise said, let me ask you this question. She said, if they offer you the Mount Carmel job and you're down here, what would you do? I said, I'm taking it. She said, we're not moving. so we didn't move. So I spent 1 year there and
Just
then
1
get back.
year.
Yeah, that's when I went to Schmogan.
So
Yeah.
so then you finally get the job at Mount Carmel,
Right.
and your first year was 1962, and obviously
yeah.
that's my time, and I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, did you think you were in heaven when you inherited Mike Chappell and Joe Greco and Tommy Barschmidt and Bobby Menapace and Ronnie Grossman and some of those people? I mean, you had some great teams early on, right away.
Yeah, right off the bat. I mean, they were very outstanding from the very beginning. I think the first year, what, we 8-2-1?
8-2-1.
Yeah, you know, and the second year, I think, was the same thing.
Well, the interesting thing about the 8-2-1 was you had 2 13-12 losses to Tamaqua and Monoy,
Right.
and a 6-6 tie to Pottsville, I think.
Right. And Tamaqua and who was the other team you said?
Monoy.
Monoy. Tamaqua and Monoy, they wound up playing for the championship. I don't know if you knew that.
I think I
they
remember.
tied for the championship, and they played for it. Yeah.
And then the next year, you had the 10-1 team, who I
Right.
think, I mean, we're going to ask you to answer these questions about what teams were your best, but I think it could have been one of your best teams, and we lost to Pottsville 14-6, and it was the only loss that year. When we had a touchdown in the end zone dropped, we had another back trip down the sideline, and we could have definitely won that
And
game.
we had 2 of our guys tackle one another. We had Wilson, little
tailback,
kid, he's going for a touchdown. Our 2 guys come over and they missed him. They wound up smashing one another.
Yeah, he
And
scored.
that was one of the touchdowns. But that's a game that we very easily could have won, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of games that,
Oh,
you know, are so close to winning that it's unbelievable that we lost them, you know. So, and, you know, I attribute a lot of that stuff to there's some coaching there, poor coaching at times, and mistakes the kids made, you know. So,
Well,
and luck on the other team.
but you're talking about losses, and I know that you talked about, you always said you didn't worry about the wins, you
Oh,
only
yeah.
worried about the losses.
Right.
You coached 355 games, you won 267 of them, you only had 81 losses in 31 years. I mean, it's 2 a year. And you can remember the losses more than you can remember the wins.
Oh, yeah.
But many of those could have been turned around, and this could have been incredible, the record that you put together, Jazz. You know?
Yeah, there's no question about that. But like you said, I always worried about. I figure wins take care of themselves. You know, it's a loss, and I want to prevent them as much as possible, and that was our goal. So we were always one of the better defensive teams because we stressed defense a great deal. Because I believe that you never know when the offense is going to go on. You never know when you get a lot of bad breaks. So you better be strong in defense and then hope that the offense comes around. And generally that's the way it worked for us.
But you just overlooked a huge portion of what I remember of your coaching is special teams. That was also so important to an overlooked area by a lot of other coaches.
Right. Well, in fact, you'd be surprised how many coaches over the years, when we became so successful on the special teams, were always quizzing me, wanting to know all about our specialty teams. But we put, every day we'd spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, preparing us for the next game, you know, because we felt it was so important. And, I mean, look how many touchdowns we scored on kickoff returns, punt returns. They were special, you know.
Well, again, you talked about punt returns, and I always kid you, I used to kid you when I was working on the sideline with you, about everybody knows what you're going to do. You're going to run the punt to your side of the field. And in other words, it was a 7 or 8. It was coming to our side. Why did you do that?
Well, I'm surprised even you didn't know back in that time. Well, see, my philosophy is this. A lot of coaches out there could intimidate officials, okay? and you want the officials on your side, okay? So my philosophy was this: if we were going to run to the visitor side or the other team, our opponent's side, the ball has to be received down around outside the 30. Get the ball down there, because you didn't want coaches from the sideline calling clip, 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 and they're out of jurisdiction by that time. The play's gone. And on our side, I wasn't worried about that. I want our fans to see the returns, and they saw many, many returns on our
Yes, they
side
did.
because that's where we came. But that was the big thing, running to and away from the
The opposition.
opposing. Yep, yep.
Coach, going back to that first year, now, obviously, you're a confident guy, and your background would have lent to that in
Yeah.
itself, but you come into Mount Carmel area, you follow Mike Terry, not only a legendary coach in his own time, but, you know, dying the way he did at the Shamokin game, all that went with it, so now you come in as the new guy. A couple of things I wonder about was that something you worried about, was trying to follow him, you know, when you got here? And what was the mechanics of that transition, like the coaching staff, for example? Do you remember, did you keep everybody from the coaching staff? Did some of them not want to come along? I mean, how did that work for you in the first year?
Well, just going to the coaches, there's some other thoughts I want to tell you about Mike Terry and what have you, but going to the coaches, I didn't have much choice. There was only 3 or 4 of us.
Oh, okay.
You see, I mean, today, you look down there now, they have 10 or 12.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
when I came, it was, and George Verona was not going to coach. When I got the job, when Mike died, George said, "I'm not coaching." He gave it up. Okay, and I went, and before I knew this, and before I was hired, I said, "George," I said, "I want to know one thing." I said, "Are you going to apply for the head coaching job?" I said, "Because if you do, I won't." He said, "Nope." He said, "I'm getting out of coaching." So anyway, when I was chosen here, I went to George, and George decided that he'll stay coaching with me, you know. So it was George and I, and I guess it was Charlie Carlo, which they called him back then, and
Was coach one of the coaches, Piskevich?
Joe Piskevich, yeah. So that's all we had it for, and then I guess Piskevich gave it up, and then I got Franny Menepace come in, and he helped. So there were only like 4 of us then, you know. And then of course
With the
later
jointure.
on Lenny Warner come on, and all these other guys.
And Stavinsky, I think, came over with you
Well,
from
the
Colmont.
jointure had come in the jointure, yeah.
Going to the jointure, how was that? Was that difficult? Or I don't seem to remember it being that way, but what was your recollection of how it was with adding the Colmont kids to the Mount Carmel kids?
That was a snap like nothing ever happened. You know, I couldn't believe how it went. Colmont come up here. Now, once they ever hear a word against the transformation, you know, they just couldn't blend in with our kids, and they were happy to do it. And it was a big deal for them because they were getting pounded in Colmont, you know. So to come up with us, then it was a whole new ball game, and they just blended right in. So never a problem.
Getting Niglio and Doviak and some of those guys was a plus for us too, I guess, at the time.
Oh, it certainly was. I mean, Greg Doviak and Dabby, probably the greatest pitch and catch tandem that we ever had. You know, they were just super. I had them. I can still be out in front of the Roosevelt Building, and I got him, and I said to him, "Look," I said, "here's what I want you to do." And I said, forget what I call read me. I said, "I want you guys to call me a read me offense." And I'd put Dabby out on the flanker, and I'd say, "You decide where you want to go, and you give Greg a signal so he'd know what to read." And boom, a lot of our plays
And
went.
that's what they did. You didn't
Yeah,
call
back-
X slant or
No,
Y seam or
no,
nothing.
no, not with those two.
Read
Yeah.
me.
Yep, read me, yeah.
People don't, and I read so many stories back in the early 60s, and people don't really begin to think of your era as you get into this 1968-69 season where you're now winning Eastern Conference championships. But when you first came to Mount Carmel, and again, as somewhat of an outsider, although I'm sure everybody had known you, I mean, you were from Colmont, you were on the national stage, you know, you went to play for the Giants, but it was just as intense back then as it was through your whole career as far as people with influence in the town and the pressure to win, you know, that kind of thing. Did you find that difficult when you first started, or you were just going to do what you were going to do and whatever happened?
Not
happened?
really. I just, you know, like I say, I learned all the basics from Walt Marshall at Cole Township. So I stepped in here, and all I do is put my coaching efforts to work, and go from there. And of course, just hope things would work out. And fortunately for me, they did, because we had so many great athletes. You know, you mentioned some of them. It was amazing what these kids did for me, and they do anything you ask. You know, there's no such thing as, well, I wouldn't or wouldn't. I have to tell you, I guess I shouldn't say this, but I will. We're going to play Pottsville, and all year long, every game, I'd say to them, now look, don't do anything crazy, don't get in trouble, don't do any drinking, and what have you. And okay. So they went all week, all year. So I guess Pottsville, what, the 7th game, about that.
Always, yeah.
And finally, they have a meeting. There was about 8 of them. They have a meeting. He said, Coach says, let's say clear, we better be ready for this game. No drinking. They used to get a case of beer, I understand. You know, and they said, no drinking for this game. After the game was over, he said, the hell with him. We're going back to drinking. Because we lost that game, what, 13-6 or whatever.
I know, Jazz, we've talked over the years about stuff like that, and you were on top of it. You felt you knew everything that they were doing. You had curfew, you had bed checks, you had phone-ins, you had whatever. And whenever we start bringing guys back, 20 and 30-year reunions, or whatever, they'd start telling you stories. And you just started spinning. You said you had no idea the things that kids did. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage any football teams or anything like that, but kids are kids. And some of the things, you were shocked.
Yeah, I thought I was on top of everything. I wasn't on top of half of it. I mean, unbelievable whatever happened with those teams, you know. And but they eventually come back and they told me these things, you know. Yeah.
But back. Let's get back into the 60s again. You had 65, 66, 67, undefeated up until we get Shikellamy. 3 years in a row they beat us. 3 years in a row they go on to win Eastern Conference and the Southern Division and whatever. What was it like to finally beat them in 68 with Gary and Bobby Veach and Jeff Greco when we finally beat them to go on to win the Southern Division Championship?
Yeah.
Did you feel a relief at that time?
Well, I don't know if I felt the relief, but I mean, I was ecstatic over it. You know, that one. Didn't we beat them in 67?
That was the 3-0 game.
3-0 game.
That was the
I think we should have beaten them.
We should have, yeah.
That was a blunder on my part. That was a coaching mistake. I have to tell you that we were running what we call our slant. We didn't call that, was a 33 running to the left. That's the fullback smash, and the quarterback was coming out, and he was having a problem with a handoff, and we kept fumbling. So this is Thursday night. So I come out and I said, Jeff Greco was the quarterback. I said, Jeff, I said, let's do this, reverse spin. And he reverse spun, and perfect mesh, perfect. You couldn't be any better. So every time we ran it, that's where it went. And so now we're down at and right where we practiced it, down at the what was then the Acme, and Jerry Bresson, I guess, told me this, or maybe George Rowan, one, and they said, whenever kids get in trouble, they'll do what's natural. Okay, well, we're in trouble trying to score, and Jeff did what was natural. He came out and did the straight handoff, bang, the fumble, and they wound up scoring. But anyway, that I said was a coaching mistake, and had I picked it up earlier in the year, then it would have been a natural thing for Jeff, and we wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah.
No, that was actually it was a great game, and I got to talk with Chuck Smells. When we go to Selingsgrove, a lot of times he'd be in the press box, and he was reminiscing about that game. And he said, I must have tried 3 field goals the whole career. He said, first of all, we didn't kick field goals. He said, that day, he said, there's the game. He said, back and forth. He said, the whole crowd and everything. He says, all of a sudden, he says to me, hey, get up here. You're going to kick. He said, oh, my God. He said, I'm running out, and he pulls me back. He said, don't miss it.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories to that, yeah. But did he
grief.
tell you about the play, though? I have to tell you about you were out there, Warren. We call our 32 to trap. It was so successful for us, 2 stories on it. They liked it so well that I don't know if they called it the Diminick Special or Mount Carmel Special. They adopted that play, and that became
Oh, yeah.
part of their repertoire. John Halkovich was being recruited by Nebraska.
Nebraska.
And he went down to Nebraska, and of course Bob Delaney was one of the number one or two coaches in the country, and he personally took John out to dinner and tried to get him to go to Nebraska. But anyway, Nebraska was so impressed with our offense, the trap. They asked me, "How do you block it officially?" And they copied it. They did exactly, and you know, I don't know how long they've been running for the longest period of time. You know,
Really?
I haven't paid any attention to what they're doing now with different offense, so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't see
everybody
that.
changes.
But they copy that.
Jazz, we talked about that game being a special game, the 3-0 game. I particularly remember the 76 game with Pottsville, the Ernie Haynes, Bob Zavarik game. And it was just such an exciting game. I mean, I shouldn't talk about myself, but what was the most exciting game that you were involved with as a coach? Remember? Or at least let's put a top 2 or 3 together.
Well, that's tough, Jose. That was quite a game, a very exciting game. There's no question the first Carlisle game
32-28.
was a great one. Yeah, it was a great game.
Nobody forgets that.
Nobody
game.
forgets that.
Oh, yeah. That's when John
Whitehead.
White had said, I saw him after the game in front of the locker in the high school. He says, your people here are crazy. I mean, that's how they were, but that's how the game went. It was just a fantastic game. But those two and I don't know.
Whitehall.
Whitehall. Well, that was
Joe Gerenster made himself famous on that game.
Yeah.
If people don't remember, it's the one where we were losing the game late in the game, and he was just going to roll it up and rub it in and put another one in, and your son John recognized the play in a flat and took it 100 yards and interception. We win a game, and then he goes back with his tail between his legs.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if I ever told you this, but in that play, John and Lenny Warren, they were 2 good defensive backs. Down at the scoreboard, it was presently the scoreboard, we were completely out of alignment on defense, completely out. Those 2 guys were on one guy and had it really screwed up. How that happened, I don't know. And John should have known better, of all people. So they send the sub in, the wing back, and he scores a touchdown pass. So now they're marching late in the game, you know, and marching, and instead of just controlling the ball, and I'm just hoping for something magical to happen. Well, again, they sent this guy in. In fact, John's saying, I hope he comes in, I hope he comes in. I mean, John told me this happened. So he comes in the game, and I'm thinking, well, I hope that's right. Again, we're out of alignment. John and Lenny are completely out of it. Well, John sends this play, and that's when John stepped in front of him.
I talked to him about it. He said he guessed, and that was all it.
Yeah.
And he guessed
He guessed
right.
he was hoping.
Yeah, he was guessing and hoping.
Yeah.
But you talked about that too, and you said John was out of it. John was this. Jazz, you coached 60 of your boys, and they were just outstanding. I think they're responsible for 150 of the 267 wins, even though they were only on the field part of the years that you were there. Were you harder on them than you were on other players? How was it coaching your own boys?
Yeah, I was hard on my boys. Simply, as I said, I didn't want anybody to think that I was playing favoritism with them. And one thing I always said to my boys when they come home after practice, you know, I'd say, one thing I want you guys to do, and people may not believe this, I said, I don't want you to ever tell me anything about the football team in any shape or form. Maybe if a practice we should have been doing something, okay, something like that, but I don't want to hear anything bad or repetitious to the kids, you know. So that was our understanding that we had. But otherwise, I just didn't want these kids, people thinking that that I was playing favoritism. I'll give you a couple of stories on that. When Kenny and Joe played for me, I'm surprised the teams never picked it up. They didn't have the defenses inside Kenny and Joe inside the 10-yard line.
They weren't getting the ball.
They weren't getting the ball. I never gave them the ball. I think, I'll bet you of all the times that they played, what, about 30 games together, something like that, if they got the ball 3 or 4 times inside the 10, that was a lot. I just didn't give them the ball. So if teams would have been smart, I don't know why they never picked it up, they would just forget it, those guys, no?
Well, Jazz, I just think it's interesting you just said that. I did this long ago. I don't even know if I showed it to you. I did a synopsis of your 6 boys' stats and whatever they did. But Gary's touchdowns, now he scored 73 touchdowns in his career, averaged 30.1 yards. That means each one of those touchdowns averaged 30 yards. He didn't get too many 1 or 2 yarders.
Oh,
and
no.
that verifies what you said.
Yeah.
John was 41.4.
Is that right?
On his
I
touchdowns.
never knew that.
Michael was 30.9. Kenny was 42.3.
Yeah.
And the only one that was low was Joe, but he was a quarterback. And once in a while, you know, the quarterback had to do a sneak or whatever, and that was 18.
Yeah.
So they didn't score from close up.
That's
I mean,
right.
they scored on their own from way out.
Right.
And what they did over their careers is just incredible. The records that they established and the numbers that they put up. And I don't think that you had to protect them at all. I just think anybody would be happy to have those guys on a team.
Yeah. Speaking of records, you know me, I've never been one for records. And the short touchdown. So we're playing Shikellamy, and it was our Joe, I don't know what year, I guess it was senior year.
I remember this.
We're driving down a field. We're marching. So we get inside the 5. I guess we're about the 2-yard line. And I said, call the Primmy. Our signal was this way.
Yeah,
A Primmy, that's a Primmy, yeah. I said, call the Primmy. And a long count. And I said, well, wait a minute. He's changed that play. Change it. We didn't score. I grabbed somebody, I think it was a kid by the name of Evans I sent in the game. I said, you going to tell Joe, if he doesn't run Primmy again, I'll kill him. I said, so he goes back in the game, long count, no touchdown. Finally, the third play, bango, Chooker scores. And Joe comes out of the game, and I said to him, Joe, why didn't you run that Primmy? You know? He said, Dad, he said, Chooker carried the ball all the way down the field. He said, and you think I was going to take it in from the 1-yard line? He said, Chooker was getting the ball, and that's what it was. But that's right. And another record we go back to, and I can still picture you coming to me underneath the old Ashland bleachers. Bobby Zavaric. What did he score, 6?
He scored 6. He had 5
He
at
had
the time.
5. You told me he had 5 touchdowns.
And I never bothered you about records
Oh,
during games.
no, never,
but
never.
This was,
Yeah, that was just something, it was a big surprise. And you said to me, I said, mark it down, we're going to get it for him. Second half, and we got the 6th touchdown, and that was it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So.
Speaking of Bobby and Joe and Kenny and Gary, you've coached some great ones. Which ones do you remember the best, Jazz, other than your own boys?
Oh, well, again, you know, I can go back and retrace so many kids, but like just a couple that stand out. Mike Chappell. Mike Chappell, I nicknamed him Iron Mike.
He still has that nickname.
Yeah. I mean, he was such a tough football player and an excellent football player. And I got to tell you one little story about him. A coach came in from Notre Dame, and he was looking at another player. He said, I wanted so-and-so and check him out. Well, I finally had a film room, so I said, here, you study the film, go out. And when I come back after the class, he said to me, he said, I don't want that first guy I looked at. He said, I want this guy here. And it was Mike Chappell, Notre Dame, you know, and I said, you can't take him. I'm not putting Mike down. I said, he's only 5'8".
Yeah.
5'8", 5'9". He said, if I can sell him to the coaching staff that he's 5'10", he said, he's got a scholarship. So we go down to the office, and I know the guy wasn't BSing me because school was out, and Ellie was leaving, and he said, could I get a transcript? So and back then, no computers.
Type
You know,
everything.
she stayed there and did it for me, gave us the transcript, and the guy took it, and unfortunately, he couldn't sell them as 510. You could see. And otherwise, Mike would have been at Notre Dame. He'd have been the first guy to go to Notre Dame.
Mike was my classmate, Jazz, you know that,
Yeah.
and he was a very good friend of mine and ended up at Villanova
Right.
because of you, and he got him a ride there. And in the spring of his freshman year, he was the starting center on that football team until he blew out his knee.
Yeah.
But it certainly showed that he could play Division I football, and
See,
he was
now,
a tough
I didn't
dude.
know he was going to be the starting center.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
But, you know, and he was doing a good job academically.
Yeah, he was.
Because of what he do. But when the knee went,
he didn't care
all
anymore.
of a sudden he didn't care anymore, and then he wound up
But
quitting.
he's a great guy
Yeah.
and still
Oh.
today, and involved in Mount
Super
Carmel
guy,
and
yeah,
cares.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's others too that you can remember, players.
Johnny Mulo was a great guy with a great heart. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about that before. He is a real diehard, and he'd do anything to play and anything to win. Yeah.
Well, what I remember about Johnny, as soon as you said it, it came back. And obviously, Ed Romance was pivotal in Mount Carmel's history and way he came back and opened up the station. And he was a huge fan. And I remember young Eddie doing a game, his son, Ed, prior to their accidents. And every time Johnny got the football, when he was a sophomore and junior, he'd go, shades of Gary Diminick, shades of Gary Diminick. I mean, he just loved Johnny and thought that he reminded him of Gary. But Johnny certainly contributed to that '72 championship team.
Oh,
and
he
did an
certainly
awesome
did.
job.
He was a great competitor. I mean, I don't know if I had to name three, he'd be one of the three of the toughest competitors we had. I mean, he was a great one.
Really.
Yeah.
Coach, we look at Mount Carmel area, and obviously we didn't get to 800 wins and be the winningest football team in Pennsylvania without doing some things differently than other, or maybe ahead of other schools. Let me put it that way. In one of those, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, and that's the connection, of course, to this TV station. And I know I remember it in high school. First of all, you had in the old predecessor to KMCTV was WJPM,
Yeah.
and on Oak Street above the Jepco's there. And you would do the Thursday night football thing where you'd bring a couple of players with you, and actually got to the point where you were bringing other coaches in, if you remember, or they would call in or whatever.
Yeah.
And certainly in Pennsylvania high school football at that time, that was kind of unheard of. Even in the big cities, they weren't doing that kind of stuff. And that kind of introduced you, I think, to, filming and the possibilities of what you could get out of that. And the fact that we had the facilities that no one else did even then to be able to do that. Of course, George McPhee, so you were really a pioneer in that kind of football at that time anyway.
Yeah. Remind me a little later about filming. George McPhee, he was one of the biggest keys that we had as far as our football program was concerned. Everything he did was just fantastic, and it was, like I say, it was all for the team. I can remember when we first started, we go up on a mountain where they have the tower, okay?
Yep.
This is huge
Yeah, compared
space
to
that
that
we
little
have.
spot, yeah.
We were like this, practically rubbing noses against one another, doing a game up there in sub-freezing weather. I mean, it was cold,
Yeah.
but that's where we did the first games up in that tower. And then, of course, we moved down in town, and it got better and better as we went along.
Yeah. But even filming wise, I think you were ahead of the game in that you used to have somebody climb up the crow's nest
Oh yeah.
and get a different perspective. You were, I think, ahead of your time as far as film. Kids watch film during study periods, and they saw what they were doing. It's probably a great way to coach kids. But you were one of the pioneers.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things I learned from Walt Marshall, you have to do a lot of film study, okay, and that we did. I mean, at Cole. So when I came to Mount Carmel, we didn't even have a projector. So finally, I went to Mr. Bierschmidt and I said, we got to have a projector. So he sent me down to Rian Derricks, and Charlie Jongas got us a projector. And from there on, it was fantastic. But like I say, studying film was a big, big thing for us. And I didn't, I don't know the technology you have, right? I have to go down with Carmi one of these days and see how they do it down at the stadium now. But back then, we could run back and forth, like, in just a matter of a split second, running the films and showing the kids what they did right, what they did wrong. And when they did right, I applauded them for it. And when they did poorly, I'd let them know about it. So they saw just what they were doing, and it was bang, bang, real quick,
Jazz, one of the things I think that film probably helped you too, you're famous for it. You talked about defense being backbone of all the things that you did. The other opposing star never beat us. Jeff Williams, or Jeff Fulner, Williams from Berwick, Lenny Long, Junior Walter, Hopkins from Pottsville, you name them, none of them ever beat us. You shut them down. Was that a result of the film work too, or was that definitely a plan? Let them beat us some other way.
Oh no, I never had that attitude. Let them beat us some other way. Study the film, see what their tendencies were, and what they would probably do, and we defense accordingly. And you never saw us playing what we call a picture book 6 or a picture book 5-4. Ours is a little bit different. I looked to try to shut them down where I could, and that's the way it went.
You were successful with it against all of them,
yeah.
except Gary Brown. Was he the best player you ever played against?
I'm sure he probably was. He toyed with us. I mean, he made us look so bad. The guy was fantastic, and outside of him, we probably would have won that game.
Yeah, well, that was our second shot game.
Yeah.
That was '86,
Yeah.
when we weren't expected to go a long way, but we won a wild card berth.
Yeah.
We go up and beat an 11-0 Valley View team. Well, I'll never
Right.
forget. Was all painted in blue and gold and stripes in their hair, and they were just going to toy with us to get to Williamsport. And Sean Madden and Mike Aronsfield and whoever else was on that team up there, we end up beating them, going to play Gary Brown again.
Yeah.
And we go up to Williamsport, and I thought for sure we had a shot, and he just played games with
Yeah.
us again.
Oh, that's all it was.
But he played in the pros for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It sort of tells you
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah.
I know that when you talk about the film sessions, which were Monday nights, right? If we could have taped those film sessions, that would be a reality show on TV right now.
I think so.
We used to joke, if you'd beat a team 42-0,
Yeah.
and we'd be walking off the field or whatever, and feel pretty good about yourselves, but somebody would always say the same thing. This won't be that far off. The score won't be that big in films on Monday, because you can't imagine how you could do that many wrong things and still win a game 42-0.
Yeah.
But there were some interesting moments in film sessions over the years, I'm sure. When you look back at them, and one of the things that you always had such great assistant coaches.
Right.
And that's something.
Oh, you can't win without good coaches.
Yeah, they just kind of gravitated to you that way. I mean, you seem to replace one, when one would leave, you could replace them with somebody just as good. You never had to worry about an assistant coach on your group.
No, for the longest time, I was coaching the line because we had no line coach. And then I don't know who I got the first one, Cal Ritter, I guess he's one of the better ones. And then, of course, I guess after Cal, was it Jim Sheehan? I remember Jim did a super job. He came to me and he said he's interested in an assistant job, and would I give him a shot? And if I wasn't satisfied with him, fire me at the end of the year, or release me. And I did. Well, Jim became an outstanding coach. I mean, he did not only there in football, but he also did the same thing in track. Jim was just a super guy there. Yeah.
What I remember about that, Jazz, is that Jim obviously is one of my best friends too, and he's a very successful attorney in Harrisburg now, and was with the governor for a while, 2 steps from the governor. And when he took the track job, he never threw an implement in his life.
No.
He was at Catholic High, they didn't even have track. And he says, Mr. B asked him, Coach, would you like to coach track? He studied film, went to Selinsgrove, did whatever he had to do to learn how to be a good weight coach. And he did the same thing with football. And I know that he was very respectful of what you taught him.
Jim became so good at it that opposing coaches came and asked him for direction. I don't know if you ever knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they asked him, well, how do you do this, how do you do that, or why, Yeah, they asked him a lot of information trying to learn
Wow.
But Jim was quite successful. He did a great job.
Well, you get back to the people you've been involved with. Joey was a great college football coach, Joe Greco.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have missed his calling in that because I thought he was a best recruiter I've ever seen. Well, you know, when Kenny went to Villanova, he recruited 3 Big 33 players to Villanova in the same year, his first year as a recruiter there. I don't think they ever had a Big 33 player, but they got 3 of them in 1 year. And then Frank Sheptock has turned out to be one of the best Division III football coaches around, and he was under your tutelage too. I mean, you've done a great job in teaching people how to do what you do.
Well,
You had an interesting relationship with one assistant, though, and I don't want to miss talking about George for a second.
yeah.
That was a great relationship over many years that you had with George.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He had an interest in a game. You never knew where George was.
That's
You
right.
talk about not being a hands-on guy.
Right.
He was like a spectator
Yeah.
until he had that one gem of advice somewhere down the line for you. And he always said it to you as he was walking by you. He never even stopped to tell
Right.
you it.
Yeah, yeah. That's how he was with that cigarette.
Cigarette.
Cigarette hand in hand. Yeah.
Well, how times have changed. He's smoking on the sideline
Right.
in front of
Yeah,
kids, and then
yeah. Now,
he
now you
goes,
can't even smoke in the stadium.
not even in the
No.
stadium.
Yeah.
No.
Coach, you had, as you came further in your career, as we started to delineate the teams into single A, double A, triple A, as that came about, and you always in the very beginning played a triple A schedule. You know, I went into the triple A district playoffs instead of the
Right.
double A. I know there's a lot of grumbling about that over the years about how well we would have done had we stayed where we belong kind of
Yeah.
thing. What was your philosophy on that?
Well, if you want to be the best, you gotta play the best, and that's what we felt all the time.
You've never changed.
And we never changed, and Carmi still has that philosophy. I remember when we started changing, I talked to Pottsville, and I said, I understand you're thinking of dropping us. And they said, as long as you're there, we will never drop Mount Carmel, and which is a tribute to me, you know, and I appreciated that. And so it was another year or two, and then when I get out, 92, they, it was a year or
Dropped.
so later, they dropped us. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing we should mention. You have 3 Eastern Conference championships. You played for 5 wild card championships. You played 8 or 9 Eastern Conference championship games, and it was everybody in the same class. You had to go through Williamsport, Pottsville, Berwick, whoever there was. It wasn't divided. 500 schools weren't divided into 4 sections like there are now. And in '88, with the first year of state playoffs, we played Bethlehem
Yeah.
Catholic in a district championship game, and we lost a very close game. That was the Mazzy team,
Yeah.
Tony Mazzatesta. And then in '91 we played, '89 we played the Dunmore team, the Tim Ruddy team, in the Eastern Conference playoffs, which led to the state playoffs then too. '91 the Palace Berwick team was up there. We played North Pocono with the kid that played at Penn State. Do you ever feel like if we would have dropped, I know I do, I feel that way, that if we would have dropped to double A, you'd still be coaching football at Mount Carmel today because we would have never stopped winning. I mean,
I agree with you there. I think we stayed a little bit too long there in AAA. If we'd have dropped to AA, they would have had a lot more wins. It's just the numbers beat you, you know,
Right.
that kind of thing there.
yeah, I think we can always put 11 on the field of playing, but it was the other 11.
Well, going back to Carlisle, when we played Carlisle, a lot of people don't know this. I sent, I guess it was Cal Ritter, sent him down to scout him because he was from down there. And Cal scouted him, he come home, and he raved about how huge they were, you know, unbelievable. And so we were kind of concerned, worried about it. So we go out to warm up, and, you know, you take the skilled people out before the linemen come out, and we get out in the field, never thinking, and we see them out there, and we look, and I said to George, I'll never forget, I said, George, I said, they're no near what Cal says they are for size. But they must have had 40 guys out there. Okay, so we thought it was the whole team. Well, it was all the specialists. When the linemen come out, whoo, I mean, we just couldn't believe it. I mean, how huge they were. And they must have had over 70 guys on the field that night, you know. And yet we turn around and wound up beating them.